Shelley Winter Show, live, local, topical, and relevant, ladies and gentlemen. And I have some breaking news. As you know, as you know, I voted for Donald Trump. Before I go to my guest, she's on the phone now, Carolyn Bordeaux. Hold on one second, Carolyn. I've got to take this call. State Rep Donna. Oh, I hung. Carolyn, call back. I'm so sorry. State Representative Donahue, go ahead.
My friend Shelley.
Yes, sir.
3 topics. My wife Elaine and I driving down the road 4 years ago, and she said, "Why do you keep listening to this guy, Shelley Winter?" When she started listening, now when we're driving down the road, she's like, "Hey, turn on Shelley. He should be on."
Oh,
so she is a fan.
Thank you so much.
She's a fan. Barry Loudermilk. We have to find the right person to take his spot. This is my last year, and if you and I ever have to step out, I've been told by 100 people I need to start consulting or lobbying. If I wanted to do it, I would do it Dunahoo and Winters.
Dunahoo and Winters.
Talking about Rick Jackson, I supported Jeff Duncan. I raised money for him. I had a lot of people vote for him. Rick Jackson was his number one supporter.
Yes, sir.
Why did Jeff Duncan become a conservative to a moderate, slightly liberal? With that, there has to be things you look at. Now, I'm not against Rick Jackson. I thank him for stepping in the race. I've been supporting Burt Jones. He's a friend. I've watched what Burt has been able to do. But I challenge Rick Jackson to come in. He's going to spend $50 million. He's already said that consultants are going to jump in and make a lot of money. It depends on how he markets himself, but is it truth and fact, or is it salesmanship? With that process, I think we're going to find out, but I would love to know your opinion on that.
I will give it to you. Let me go to my guest. I appreciate your call, State Representative Donahue. I tell your wife, thank you very much for listening. I appreciate her very much. I want to go to my guest, Carolyn Bordeaux, and I'll answer that question that you ask after this interview, okay?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. God bless you, and keep up the great work. Carolyn, all right, Carolyn, I'm so sorry about that.
No. It's very interesting to hear that. Good evening.
Yes. That was State Representative Donahue, and I wanted to take his call because he called in around where you heard the call. Let's start off. Carolyn comes on with me. She's my Democrat friend, my moderate Democrat friend. We've been doing this since the election, and it's very interesting. People ask about it all the time. Let's start off, Carolyn, with what I text you about. What I wanted to start off with was the governor's race and Mr. Jackson. You heard Mr. Donahue talking about it, him jumping into the race.
You know, I wish the multimillionaire, billionaire folks who try to jump into these political races would give me a call. And for, a mayor, a couple 100,000, I'd give them some good advice, okay?
And what advice would you give?
These guys get into these races, right?
Right.
And it is most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, they really just do not do well. They're used to running their own ship. They're used to, being in a command position, all this kind of stuff. They're not used to groveling for votes. They're not used to going out there and, being humble in front of people. And it just never really goes well. We had, Kelly Loeffler, with all due respect. You've got Derek Dooley, with all due respect. These folks are just, they're good people in other spaces, but they're just not ready for political prime time. So we'll see. He's got a lot of money. Maybe he'll do something, but I just, I'm not seeing it right now, but we'll see.
And, you bring up an interesting point. And that point is that when, it's fascinating what you just said. Let's kind of drill down on that, if you don't mind. Because as a politician, you say humble, right? But I think there's another word for it, and I think the first word you used was grovel. To a large, no, you have to grovel for votes. You have to,
you do have to beg a bit.
You
There's
have
a
to
bit of begging involved in this.
Beg a bit,
Please.
right? There's
Work
a
with
bit,
me here.
right? Exactly. There's a bit
Yeah.
of begging and groveling, and when you've done something, particularly with his backstory, coming from poverty, coming from foster care, all of that, he has spent the entirety of his life basically knocking and elbowing people out of the way to build this company, and so now you have to go and you have to. You literally have to go into a small town hall meeting, right, with people that are making, barely 40, 50, $60,000 a year, and you have to talk to them and ask them for something that you spent the entirety of your life of those people asking you for stuff.
Yes, yeah. There's always this image. There was a representative. Henry Hyde, who did this great speech once on the floor, and he was saying, I spend my evenings, under the flickering lights in a union hall. It's cold. I'm talking to, 10 union members, talking to them about what I'm trying to do. But my opponent's there next to his fireplace, smoking his Macanudo cigar, and he's like, but that's what politics is. There is this element where you've got to go to the poorly lit, hall where the people are gathering and talk to them and try to, persuade them. And it's hard for these guys. They fought their way up to a point. They think they know what they're doing, right? They often come in with, often they don't even realize it, but a certain arrogance to how they approach things. And it often just does not go well, and they often just waste a ton of money doing these kinds of things.
Absolutely, and the arrogance is not a negative; it's a positive because it's what got them to where they are now. But in politics, that arrogance shows through as soon as you shake a man's hand, as soon as you shake a man's hand or a woman's hand for their vote. It comes through right away. It bleeds right through. Great
I tend to think so. Yeah, I have campaigned against some of these very wealthy, very accomplished business people, and they just really struggle. I remember being in a parade once, and this business guy was there. He's I won't tell you which side of the aisle he was on, but anyway, he was just like dragging. He was like, "Oh my God, do I have to do this?"
Right, exactly.
and I'm like, buck up, Buttercup.
Right.
Let's go out there and talk to people.
Right,
so
and
anyway,
it's the retail end of it. And when you get to a certain level in business, you forgot the act, because the same actions that got you to that spot in business is what you have to go back to do every single day, every single minute of every single day, to get the voters on your side. Great observation. I did not think about that. Great observation. That's why I love having you on, Carolyn. Now, let's talk about the big news. We weren't on last week. The FBI, my listeners told me to call it an investigation, not a raid. Your thoughts?
What a terrible thing. So I have to say, I condemn this in the strongest of terms. It is, first of all, the 2020 election is over. It is not just a little over. It is very, very over. It does not matter if he finds out that he wins. Who would believe it anyway, right? That he basically has treated the FBI like his personal police force, dispatched them at his command to go into the Fulton County election office and take ballots out. The chain of command is broken. Who the heck knows what will be produced on the other side? Even if they did walk out of there and say, "Oh, we found something," I wouldn't believe it. I wouldn't believe it if a Democrat did that, right? They have absolutely broken faith. The bigger problem is that this casts a shadow on the 2026 election and the 2028 election, that the president may use the FBI as his personal police force to undermine and destroy the integrity of the election. And I so appreciate Republicans like Eric Erickson and others who are absolutely saying this is the wrong thing to do.
Do you believe, when you say nobody would believe him, do you believe that if something does come out of it, that those who will believe them, what would be their response? Will they not vote in November, or will they, revolt? Like, what would be the reaction to those? Because there will be a lot of people who say, "See, I told you," because they've invested 6 years of their lives into this, into proving that this.
I am sorry. It is time to walk away. I mean, Donald Trump is president, okay? He is president now. It's done. And I just, well, they do. I don't know. They're winning nothing by this, and they're losing everything.
Winning
Which is
nothing,
to say
losing everything.
they're losing everybody else's faith in the integrity of the elections going forward by doing things like this.
Another interesting.
They don't. There's no change. No change is going to happen in who's president based on this. Nothing is going to change, except that people like me are going to have questions about the 2026 election and the 2028 election.
Now, that being said, historically, the party in power loses seats. Party in the White House loses seats in the House and the Senate. We may not lose that many in the Senate, but we lose House seats. Do you think that the Democrats will still question 2026? Based on what you're saying, if they take a bunch of seats, or you know what I mean?
No.
Right.
But if they lose, right? If they just, and that's what happens over and over again, right? And when you lose, you have to convince the losers, right, that the election is free and fair. That is, you just have to make sure that everybody is on board with this. And I'm just going to say, look, Georgia is a Republican-run state, right? And if anybody should have questioned 2020 or been worried about it, it was the Democrats, right? It was a Republican-run state. So anyway, or had faith in the outcome would be the Republicans. The Republicans run the state. So at any rate, I don't know. But my concern is the FBI will now come in. Let's say the Democrats do win, and Donald Trump says, go find me more votes, and dispatches the FBI to the Fulton County Board of Elections in 2026 and says, go find votes.
Lastly,
what's going to stop him from doing that?
Lastly, I want to ask you, there's a story out there about James Tallarico. We didn't talk about this one, but with James Tallarico and Jasmine Crockett. Yeah. And you face the same thing. That's why I'm bringing it up. If a white candidate is running against an African-American candidate, particularly on the Democrat side, because you see it more there, obviously, than you do on the Republican side, why is it always the call of racism when the white candidate criticizes the black candidate? Why is that a political thing still in 2026?
Well, it's always going to be a thing. And I just want to, it gets blown out of proportion often by the media. There's always going to be somebody out there making some unfair, blown out of proportion claim. And then what happens is the media thinks, oh, that's a great story. That's about, a black person calling a white person a racist within the Democratic Party. And then it spirals out of control a bit. I just hope that this will settle down because it is ridiculous.
It is. And it's when I read the story, I'm thinking to myself, what he said was not bad at all. But Jasmine Crockett is running with it and pushing that narrative. And it's just really unfortunate. Yeah. It really is unfortunate. Carolyn,
everybody gets to play their dirty tricks, right?
Yeah, right.
Everybody gets to play their dirty tricks.
Man, you're on fire tonight with the one-liners. Thank you for joining me. I'll talk to you next Wednesday. And thank you for a great segment. I appreciate you very much.
All right.